Officially welcome everyone. We're so excited that you're joining our panel discussion today. This is our second series for the deep dive, and we're just so excited that you're taking the time because we know it's a really busy time for everyone in this world right now. So the fact that you've actually created some space to join us, it really means a lot to us. So thank you. As the title of the session is, we're going to be sharing life lessons to thrive in VFX and animation. So we've got some amazing panelists that are going to share their authentic stories with you, and we hope that you're going to also engage with us in the chat. So I almost forgot to introduce myself. I'm Lori Corcuera. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm the head of HR for Vancouver and LA. And I'm really excited, as you can tell from my energy, to be your moderator today. As a settler of Canada, I'm also conducting this webinar from our Vancouver studio, which is located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I am personally committed to learning more about our Indigenous history and supporting DNEG to fulfill call to action number 92 for business, truth, and reconciliation. At DNEG, we respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples living on this land. Now, for those of you that are new to our deep dive webinar series, which is also all of us on the call, we created these webinars to spotlight our remarkable talent who we will all dive deep into their specialties and passions. These live sessions are a place for dialogue and discovery, and will offer anyone who loves visual effects and animation the opportunity to learn more and engage with our team. I'm just going to check in with our panelists. Are you all ready to go?
Yeah. Good to go.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so we're going to have each panelist do a quick introduction. They're going to share their role at DNEG and how long they've been part of the VFX and animation industry. And we're going to start off with Alejandra. And Alejandra, you get to choose who's next to go to do that introduction. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alejandra Lopez. I'm a lead creature TD here in Montreal. I've been here for 3 years already with DNEG. And yeah, I'm from Colombia. I've been feeling really great today. So let's hope that we have a nice chat today with everyone. So over to you, Akila.
Thanks, Alejandra. I was prepared this time. I'm Akila. I am the resource schedule manager for feature animation. I have been with DNEG for just about 6 years, and I've been in the industry just about 10 years. And yeah, I mean, that's about me. And I am nervous, but also super happy to be a part of this panel along with such an amazing team here.
Yay.
So I hope you all have a good experience.
Yay, Kira. And who do you choose to go next?
Yes, Matthew.
Hi everyone, I'm Matthew. I'm the head of lighting for VFX in London. And that means I do a mixture of tools and workflows, artist career development, and some show scheduling. And I've been at DNEG for about 15 years now. Stevie, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so I'm Stevie, also called Grace, but Stevie, it works at the office. I have been at DNEG Vancouver for about 5. I just had my 5th year anniversary. I've been in VFX for 12 years now. I've worked in London, UK. I've worked in New Zealand and here in Canada. Yeah, I like Akila. I'm a little nervous, but they're good nerves. They give you, good energy. I'm very excited to be here. So enjoy it. It's going to be good.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking that time to introduce. I know we're all feeling a little bit nervous. I think when we're nervous, it just means that we really care about this conversation. So as the title talks about life lessons, when we talk about life, we talk about like how it began. So we want to know from each of you, how did you start your career in VFX and animation, and why? Why did you choose this industry? So let's start with Alejandra.
Yeah, so well, my history is like a little bit weird, I will say. I started to like look into the animation world, more on the 2D world, because that was my passion when I was a kid. So I started to look into it, but I'm from Colombia originally. So in Colombia, there's no career that is directed to this. So I really started to looking more in the side of France because I was in a French school. So I started looking into it. And then I found that we had also 3D animation school. So I started in a 3D animation school. And in the 3D animation school, I found there was something else called VFX. So I started with that. And so that's how I get here. And yeah, and in my day-to-day on the school, I found out so many things of the VFX career. And so that's how I ended up in hair, groom, and creature TD after all.
That's awesome. Your curiosity led you to this career. You just kept going. Okay,
Yeah.
what else is there?
Exactly. It's just like you find something and then you find something else and then you're like, oh, that's amazing. I just look inside and then.
That's awesome. So Stevie, how about you? What led you to our industry?
I always sort of like to describe that I kind of fell into it without really intending to. I was at high school and loved cartoons, and a heap of my friends were like, yeah, we're going to go do animation. I'm like, yeah, me too. I have no idea what that is. And I was taking like a computer course, which was really like Word, Excel. And then I found a tiny school at a beach community that did 3D animation. And so I was like, yeah, sure. It was an hour from my mom's place, so it was cool. And I did that for 2 years and always thought to myself, I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be the best at school, top marks. I'm going to get the best job. I wasn't, but I did work very hard. And then I made a very bold decision to apply at Weta Digital before I'd even finished school. And all my friends were like, "That you're crazy. They don't take anyone with less than 3 years experience." I was like, oh, could do it anyway. And I did, and lucked out getting into an internship program there with 8 other people who have never done anything like VFX. And so, yeah, it was my first job. I just was bold and took a risk. And then I feel like I've stumbled around the world and fallen upwards ever since.
I love that. So curiosity, and for you, just taking a risk and just really having some friends there to support you along the way. Yeah. Amazing. I love that the internship as well just gave you that opportunity. How about you, Matthew?
For me, it was just, I always loved drawing, and I had dreams of being a fine artist when I was in school and just painting my way through life. But my parents wanted me to do more serious stuff like maths and computing. So I came across animation because it happened to do both those things. It kept me happy and satisfied, but also gave my parents some hope for the future as well. So that's how I ended up in animation.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that you bring the parents thing, because I know that whenever we talk to new grads, they're all, or even students, they're always like, oh, but I want to do this, but my parents are doing this. And I know that's going to come into our conversation a little bit later. How about you, Akila?
So I would say my career started in VFX and animation accidentally. I studied finance. I worked in a corporate job while in a corporate job, because of course I'm from Mumbai and Bollywood is a big influence. You obviously get influenced by all the glitz and glam in Bollywood, and you kind of want to taste a little bit of it. So I always wanted something to do with media, something that will be, because I knew I was creative, but I knew I was an amateur, and I don't think I was going to make a career in anything creative. So I was like, how do I get there? And my friend was working in an animation industry, in animation company, and then he just like talked about a production position, and I was like, do I want to take that risk? I have a well-paying job. Do I want to leave all of this? And then I thought to myself, 10 years down the line, do I really see myself doing this job? And I was like, hell no, I got to take a risk now. So I might as well take a risk now when I can go back to my parents and say I have no money and I've lost the job, rather than taking it later. So I just took a leap of faith. And I think this was like about 11 years ago. And then I've never looked back, and I'm super happy. And I just feel so proud that I made that decision that day of going and interviewing with the company. So, yeah.
And we're so happy that you did.
Yeah.
because you've been here and you've done so many different roles, which I know we're going to get into a little bit later. So thank you so much, Shakila, for sharing that. So another question that, now that you're all here, we know now what the journey was like, whether we took risks and we were influenced by our family or not, or friends and all that. What do you actually love most about your current role? And so I know it's a big question because I'm sure you've also had multiple roles, but let's start with Stevie. What's coming up for you as it relates to what do you love most about your role? And maybe even share like one of your most memorable moments to date.
The great thing is that the longer you're in the industry, you'll experience this constant change. It's not stagnant. You don't stay in the same role, the same job, doing the same work. So for me, probably one of the best things I enjoy, and I now know to acknowledge and that it's a good thing, is I love working with the people, the team. It actually doesn't even matter what show I work on, TV. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even really matter what particular component I do. If I'm with a really cool team of people that I can help and add to their experience and just like have collaborative workflows, I just draw so much energy from that. And luckily at my time at DNEG and in most studios I've been in, they're always great people. They've just got so much passion. And even when you have a bad day, you come in and someone will make you laugh and, and everyone's so committed. So I think like one of the most, I suppose, experiences I've had recently that made me feel a tremendous amount of pride and connection to what I do. It was actually helping an artist, and there's been a couple of artists that have been really struggling. Working from home has been really challenging. We don't get to see a lot of people, but we have to work just as hard and find ways to communicate. And I discovered I have this great sense of protectiveness towards my people. And as soon as I heard there was help that was needed, I was like, right, I can do this. And I just threw myself out there at anyone who needed to be told, this is a thing, we need to fix this. And I just was so passionate about it that, I just realized I'm like, okay, that's actually probably one of my greatest strengths. I can do the work, but being there for the team to help the team get more work done is just like, it's challenging because it means I have to talk to people who sometimes I feel are a bit scary. They're not, they're just people and they're very cool people, but they feel, you're like, oh, can I just speak now? But to do that for someone else to make their environment more comfortable was just like, I have a drive for that. So that was very cool. Biggest challenge, feeling like I'm brave enough to do that most of the time, to do that for other people, for myself, and to know that that's a valuable skill. To do the technical work is good, but we need more than just that in lots of different people. So to know that that's probably one of my strongest attributes in the industry. Yeah. Took a long time to realize. So that's,
But you realize it now, and that's the most amazing thing, right? When you know something about one of your strengths and you're able to use it to create that opportunity or that support that that you wish or you had experienced when you were in that position. That's awesome. I just love that story. So how about you, Alejandra? Do you have anything that you'd like to share that is like a memorable moment, one of your memorable moments at DNEG?
Yeah, for sure. Like how Stevie was saying, like I relate more in my role as a lead. I like a lot, the technical artist side, because I still can do the artist side. But the thing that I love the most is having like people skills and like talk to my team and find a way how we can be better as a group or as a industry as well in the studio and everything. So that's the best part of like the role that I agree with Stevie. And yeah, it was a memorable stuff that I had. It's like all the time that I'm working with someone, either if it's a supervisor or an artist, it is always like nice to find ways to make the stuff work, to make our pipeline better, or make our like ideas better, to make it work for the show. And yeah, I had like pretty nice stuff to do in Wonder Woman when we had to do a lasso for a lot of stuff. I wasn't a lead then, but it was quite art directed and it was fun times to do. Like,
That's awesome. That's one of the reasons why I joined DNEG. I love the Wonder Women that you obviously have been part of. So that's awesome that you were able to share that. And yes, we do have that environment where we can, share suggestions. We actually encourage that, right? Which is
Yeah,
I
to
love
make
that
it
you brought
better.
that up. Yeah, to make it better. And then the people skills even more right now with everything that's going on, especially in a virtual environment. That is the skill that's really keeping us all together, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm curious for Akila and Matthew, and let's start off with Matthew. What really surprised you about this industry? I know you've probably been on this call at DNEG the longest. So yeah, just curious from your end, what surprised you?
Yeah, so I think the thing I found most surprising about this industry was that when I was in school and then in university in the UK, it felt like I was one of the only people in the world who was interested in this blend of art and maths and computer science, especially when I was in secondary school. And then as I grew into university, I found, there's more people who are interested in this stuff as well. And then when I started applying to jobs and to DNEG, and then as DNEG has now grown, actually there's a whole worldwide community of people who are interested in this kind of stuff. And that just seems such a long way away from me at 16, 17 years old, thinking about what I wanted to do with my life. I felt quite unique, but quite alone as well on that road. But now it's the whole worldwide community out there.
Yeah, that's great, Matthew. I think that especially in this day and age, there's so many different careers that are being created, and it might feel like you're alone in the beginning, and then it just needs to expand and grow. And look where the VFX and animation industry is today. It's hotter than ever. So yeah, it is a huge community. So how about you, Akila? When you think about your career and experience here at DNEG, what really surprised you about our industry?
So, like I mentioned earlier, I had no clue what I was getting into. So everything was a surprise for me. It was just like, oh, this, oh, this, oh, this. But considering having done production, having done resource management, what I really realized, there were two things that stood out for me, or I was thinking about what is it that stood out. One thing that surprised me was what kind of, like, it's a beautiful organized chaos that we work with. There's always so much chaos, but at the end of the day, it's all going to fall into place and you're going to deliver a show. So when the show starts, you just don't know what you're going to end up seeing at the end of the day. But how coming from a corporate world, which was so organized, to something like this was complete opposite side of the spectrum. And then you come here and you see how the chaos then eventually fades and everybody just knows the method to madness, and then they will just get the show delivered. The second point that I think I was personally very surprised is the one frame that you probably see for a millisecond. The amount of hard work that goes into getting that frame looking perfect, beautiful, that lighting, that color, all of that everybody's so passionate about achieving, which I probably will not even notice. That's what passion is about. And I just realized how that passion flew into that one single frame. And I think that surprised me quite a bit, because I probably didn't know that those 2 hours or 1 hours of binge, or those days of binge watching that I do, the amount of hard work that goes into is what I realized when I got into the industry. So I think that was amazing for me, and that still surprises me, actually.
Yeah, it surprised me too when I joined DNEG. I actually, being non-technical, being in HR, I took the VFX history, or kind of the course that's for general, and it showed like every breakdown of the film, and I will never look at our films the same way. And I just have so much pride in all the work that you all do. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. That definitely was a surprise for me. So there's actually another question I want to sort of build upon this one little surprise thing, and I'm thinking about what you're saying is like there's a lot of different things that come up for us as we're going into this industry. So I'm curious, for someone who is like a foreigner, for example, that that comes into this industry, because as you can see, we're a very diverse group. And if you look at all of our different global sites, we have 9 studios in various countries. So it's a very diverse group. And so curious from you, Stevie, what's your sort of advice for people who might be a newcomer, new to a country? Because that's kind of the way our industry is set up right now.
Absolutely. I honestly, I think it's a great question, and it's something that's actually come up with some of my colleagues yesterday at a lunch. Actually, strangely, got to see my colleagues in person. It's a big thing. I started off in New Zealand, and then I moved to London, the furthest place from home I could possibly go as my first overseas experience, and then here in Canada. And one of the very interesting things is you give up everything you've known, all of your comforts, all your cultural things you understand, and you suddenly throw yourself into a world where you don't know anyone, you don't know where to find the supermarket, you're completely alone, and then you start this working experience, and it can feel very isolating, and work becomes the only thing you have. And so one of the things I found was that actually socializing in isolation was a big thing to overcome. And so you have to, as someone who's new to a company or a country, you have to try and integrate yourself into people that already exist there. They already live there. They already have their friends, their families, their groups. And that can be quite uncomfortable. So you kind of have to sometimes put yourself out there and be like, oh, were you guys talking about going to the pub? Can I come? That can be very difficult. I'm not particularly good at that. I really struggle with that. But another flip side of that I can definitely recommend is that to all the people who do live in their own country, if you're Canadian and you're in Canada, or if you're British and you're in London, invite the new person out. Like, they are so isolated. They will come to work. They're trying to learn everything they can. They're also trying to find where to find the food that they're used to cooking with. And then they go home to a flat they probably don't have furniture for yet. Invite them to the pub. Ask them if they want to go for a hike. You might find that they'll say yes to the hike, and then you find out halfway through they hate it, but actually they just need to get to know people. So just like that being aware of the person that's new to your company and new to your country, they may not have anyone or anything. And give just that olive branch, just reach out, just give them an invite, because they're probably sitting in the corner going, can I come? Like, please invite me. Really, just make this an open thing. They'd be so grateful if you did. It can be very hard to break into local friend groups and stuff. So yeah, it's a big thing moving overseas.
For sure. I think that speaks a lot about just how we want to create more inclusive places and places where people feel they belong. And so I think that's such great advice to just make that effort, right? Especially right now, with all of us working from home, we have to really make that effort. Even a virtual coffee just to get to know somebody would be amazing, and reaching out to them. So yeah, this is it.
Sorry. To add to what Stevie said, I know that here in Montreal, we have a nice thing. I don't know if in every DNEG site it's the same, but before the pandemic, we had always a Friday bureau clock. So that always was really, really great, especially for new people to just get integrated not only with the other people from the studio, but also from the people on your same team, and talk more and be more like, oh, we're not talking about work. We're talking about normal stuff. And that's nice. And so that also helps people to just communicate with one or two more than others, or a huge group, or whatever is your personality. And then after that, you can always do the brave question that oh, we should do a movie, or we should go have brunch at this place, or we should go and test this new festival that is coming up, because we're all foreigners too. So even foreigners, they're oh yeah, for me, it's more every time I meet someone new, it's really great. Especially when they're Latinos, I always oh, you're from Mexico, that's great. And I was talking in Spanish, and I'm oh, that's so nice. So you always get that comfort zone at some point, and maybe that helps you adding more to your friend group.
Yeah, I think it helps with the work as well, right? It helps.
Yeah, for sure.
Add and build to the comfort in the office. So if something breaks, instead of sitting there quietly being I don't know who to ask, you just go, I know who I could talk to and feel safe with. And they might not they might know who can fix it, and that just opens doors. It's good.
Yeah, well, one of the tips that we give through our remote leadership program that we recently led here is to have those rituals, right? To have those social gatherings, like if it's something every Friday or once a month, or, you know, we have in our team water cooler Wednesdays, right? So we just know we get together at a certain time and we don't have to have an agenda. We're just pretending that we're at a water cooler. So that's awesome. Thank you so much, Alejandra, for adding to that. While you're speaking, I was actually going to ask you the next question. When you reflect on your career, what has really been one of the greatest challenges and how did you overcome it? If you could share one of those.
Yeah, for sure. Like, well, there have been, every time there is a challenge. I will say that the big challenge is there's always change in the industry for whatever it is. Like, it could be that you move from one country to another. It will be that you change studios. So that changes completely. Like, or a studio doesn't work like the other one. So you cannot like always keep the same stuff. Like, it's not like as you are in a finance stuff and then you just move around, it's gonna be the same almost every time. It's more like here is always changing. And so like that also, like one thing that I would say, like I had to change my skill set when I arrived here, because like in France, it was completely different. The hair simulation was one thing, and then the cloth simulation was another thing. So it's other departments, and they were separated. And then when I arrived here, they're all together. So it's like, okay, well, I have to learn this other part as well. So it's just, I will say, like, be able to change and always be open-minded, that you always have to do something new and learn something new from someone else.
Yeah, again, going back to that curiosity that you have
yeah.
shared in the beginning, right? It's really just staying open, right? Because that is the world that we are. The change is constant, and really taking steps to build that resilience. How about you, Matthew, being with the company, like any kind of big challenges that you've encountered, and how did you overcome it? Any personal strategies there?
Yeah, I guess so. So I think in general, I think over the time I've been at DNEG and in the industry, I've seen that there's been more pressure applied to the industry in general. I think there's clients expect more, they want it faster, and they want to have more control over it. So, and on the other side, like, we've got our tools and our workflows as well, which we use to try and make those images. So I think the biggest challenge that I've seen in my time at DNEG was on one particular project where the client really wanted a lot, and they wanted to have full control over a very complex, long shot. And we didn't really have the tools at the time to do that easily. So in order just to get one version out to the client to show them what they wanted, it took a few days actually, a lot of complex animation, a lot of complex rendering and everything. And so that loop was really quite long and quite painful. And I was leading a small team at the time, and I could see that they were struggling because they wanted to do so much, but the tools were limiting them at the time. And that's, in some ways, that's a microcosm of the industry, that everybody wants a lot, and you've got an infinite canvas and huge imaginations to make all these things, but you also are limited by time and money and the tools that we have as well. When you put passionate people into that mix and stir it up, it can cause a lot of pressure there, make people frustrated. So on this particular project, that was really tough. So I think the way that we got through it was just by sticking to doing the basics properly. And even though the pressure was there, we just kept together as a team, did one thing, next thing, do it all properly, check everything. And in the end, the result was really great. It was really something that I'm really proud of. Not because it looked great, because it did, but also because everybody who worked on it really just stuck together as a team and just did the basic things really, really well. And in the end, it was a great result.
Something that I'd love for you to add to that, Matthew, because I know whether, as an individual person, there's all those pressures, but you're also a father, and you actually recently led a very enriching conversation panel discussion, men's mental health event for fathers. Do you want to share a little bit about what was really some of the key lessons there that the fathers or even parents in general, might be going through in this type of industry? Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think, so I ran an event a couple of months ago with DNEG dads, mostly in London, and we were just sharing our experiences of what it was like to be a father during the pandemic. And it was really healthy discussion because we found that we had a lot of common experiences. And it was basically about balancing all the work stuff and all your family stuff outside as well. And working from home has really blurred those boundaries. And there's positives to that, but there's also some really negatives as well. So I think it was just a really good example of how you can think that you're going through something alone and uniquely, and you're just the first person who ever come across this problem, but actually you're not the first person. There's other people who are struggling through exactly the same pressures, maybe under slightly different perspectives or in different sites, but the problems are the same. I think it was a good example of how even at a company like DNEG, which has sites all over the world, we had people jumping in from India and from Canada and from London as well, and they had exactly the same problems balancing work and family. So yeah, it was a really good example of how when you just expand your scope, your circle of friends, and you can actually see that actually you're not alone. There's people on the other side of the planet having exactly the same problems that you are in a similar way. Yeah, at the end of the day, we're all human, right, Matthew? And I think this is the power of storytelling, because then we can feel that we're not alone. And that's what we're hoping to inspire all of you in these conversations, that we're all going through this pandemic together, and hopefully you learn some of the things that from our experiences. So I have a really interesting question here that I've been waiting to get to. I know every question is really important, but this one I know I also personally connect with. It's something that I know is top of mind, whether you're starting in your career or you've been in your career for over 20 years, which is me. And so it really doesn't matter how long you've been in your career. I think all of us tend to have this type of imposter syndrome, or those types of thoughts that kind of, feel like fear or doubt. And so curious from Stevie, what's your thought on that? What's your personal experience with imposter syndrome, and how do you kind of navigate with that? I know it's a big question, but love to hear.
Yeah, I'll try and condense it. It's a huge, I feel like I could talk about this for hours because it's a big thing. And I've personally been going through some quite incredible learning change recently. But yeah, the imposter syndrome is so powerful that it can slowly undermine some of your decisions. And wonderfully, I was actually from Akila also said everybody has it at all levels, we all have it, and learning and knowing that is a huge relief for me. So I've just become a lead and a surfacing artist, so I take control of texturing and LDev, and I've been in the industry for 12 years and thought I could never do that, never ever do that, and I've recently just come across this idea of this unconscious bias that it's been talked about recently in the industry and in the world, about how we have that about other people. But what I came to realize is that I have this unconscious bias towards myself. I have these preconceived ideas based off what society taught me was right or wrong or normal or good, that I hold them against myself. So I think I'm not that valuable. I'm not that good at my job. No one really wants to hear me talk, which is funny that I'm on a panel, but I have all of these thoughts and these self-doubts that I'm not technical enough, so I should just be quiet, and I'm not useful, and I have nothing to contribute. And I've very recently, in the last 2-ish weeks, come to realize that this is an unconscious bias I hold in my own mind and I use against myself. And when I became aware of it, there was this beauty of this relief of oh, okay, so it doesn't mean it's true, but I have these thoughts. And now that I'm aware that I have these thoughts, I can kind of start balancing them. And I also have this motto and this kind of idea that I like to remind myself, is that on the good side of it, if the people around you that you trust and love see something in you and say it to you fairly often, it's probably more true than those doubts you have in your own mind. My unconscious bias is saying, you are useless, just go away. And then all of my colleagues and my friends are going, man, it's great to hear your side of the industry, or it's so nice to be able to work with you and you can do things so fast. And, you know, once you've been told that by 2 or 3 people that you trust and that you know are nice, you've got to try and believe that, because they're probably right and you're probably just doubting yourself. So have a little faith in that and trust it sometimes, and make a bold move, even if to you it feels like crazy scary, like accepting being a lead and being on a public panel. Just, it's probably not that big a deal to everyone else because they trust you to do it anyway. They wouldn't have asked and they wouldn't have put you in that position. They didn't think you could do it. But also remember that it's okay to ask for help when you get stuck, you know? So just being aware that that can happen in your own head is cool.
Yeah, so being self-aware, taking some bold, you know, just being bold and just overcoming that. And I love how you shared, you know, listening to the people that see us, right? Because sometimes we don't see our strengths, but someone else will see it, but then listen to that as well. Now, I know, Akila, you also had some good stories to share about that. What would you like to add to that question?
Yeah, so I was actually trying to read about imposter syndrome because I did make that comment the other day with Stevie when we were chatting that everybody has it. So apparently some stats, 70% of the people go through this sort of syndrome at some point in life, based on what I read. And it's basically, it is telling yourself that you got to where you are today because of luck and not because of a qualification or talent, and which I think I think a lot of people I know have that a lot of times. So of course, and I've lived through that. And the reason I also said I'm nervous is because when I said that at the start of the panel is I am going through that syndrome where I feel like, oh, why am I on this panel? Do I deserve to be on this panel? So those kind of questions happen every time I do something out of my box that I've created for myself. So I think talking about that syndrome, I think I've started focusing on how I can get out of that instead of trying to talk about that too much. Is being conscious or of the thought. So when a thought comes to me, I try to think, would it hinder me or would it lead me to would it lead me to a progress, a personal progress, professional progress, wherever. If it's going to hinder me, I try to stop thinking. But of course, as humans, we cannot just stop thinking. So I then talk to friends about it, or anybody I feel can give me that kind of advice on what I'm thinking. Is that correct? Or I start journaling, trying to see the end result of what could go wrong. So scenario A, this could happen. Scenario B, this could happen. Scenario C, this could happen. And I've prepared as to what's the worst. And once I've prepared for the worst, I think it kind of helps me get out of that. So there are different ways you could, like everybody could go, and I'm sure there's a lot on Google as well, but I've tried to read about it because I've gone through so much. And during this pandemic, I think it's become even more, because otherwise at work, you'd have colleagues and you could just share, and you know that confidence just comes from people around. When you don't have anyone around, it's very difficult to self-motivate and tell yourself, hey, you're good, just let's go. So I guess that's where I think I'm trying to learn how to get away from that syndrome.
Yeah, it's a lifelong journey, isn't it? Right? Because there's always going to be those thoughts in our mind. And I think that the best thing for all of us is to really continue the self-work, to learn more about ourselves, so that when it comes, we know, okay, this is just that little thought. I'm going to listen to my friends or ask for support. And yeah, that's amazing. So a question that we're starting to see in the chat a lot about is the skills. What skills do you wish you had learned earlier in your career that would support you in today? So I would love to start with Alejandra, and if anyone else wants to share, please do so.
Yeah, so on a side of technical skills, I will say that for me as a creature of 2D, I will like also kind of respond the question that is in the Q&A, that for a CFX artist, you should know cloth simulation and hair simulation, and also like all that is on the character side. So skin simulation, muscle simulation, sculpting, everything. And like I will say that it is a skill that you develop. It's not that you will know everything from the beginning. I will say like always take a basic one like Maya, Houdini, whatever software you like to use, whatever also software for simulation that you want to use, in cloth or vellum, whatever it is. And yeah, just get really good at that. And then like after that, just be able to change, because like every time you change company, it's gonna change. So like not always the same softwares are used in every single part. Also, I will say that skill that I would like to have at the beginning of my career, I will be like more confident from the beginning, you know, like I already build up my confidence, I already here, but like from the beginning, I didn't have it. So that would have like changed my life from the beginning.
Do you have any tips on how to do that, Alejandra? Knowing now that that is something that would have really supported you, what are some ways to build on that confidence?
Yeah, like for one part, like relating to the imposter syndrome thing, is like confidence is a big thing for you. It's like you are able to speak, you are able to do your opinion, and you are able to ask questions. That's the main thing that I think with that, I built it up my confidence, because like I wasn't never afraid to ask questions. Maybe the first job that I got, because I was an intern in another studio, you always get like that fear of the, if I ask a dumb question, they're gonna look at me and they're gonna say something from me. But like, I know that there is no dumb question. You are learning, and every step of the way you are learning. So the confidence is just like you just build it up by just trying to trust you in what you are feeling and what you are thinking, and also what you are like not sure about. And some people can help you to just open up those doors. I don't know, Stevie, what do you see?
I agree. I have basically, I was just thinking about it and listening to what you're saying, and I have like 3 points really that you've kind of touched on, that if anyone was starting out in the industry, these things are invaluable. Like you just have them, write them down if you need to, but like when you're working and you're given a task, the first thing you do is just take a deep breath and then break it down into its basics. It's so easy to get an asset or to get a task and get so overwhelmed that you kind of freak out and you spend the first hour just like hyperventilating. Take a deep breath and just make a list of how you think's best to tackle it, you know? Just take that moment to think before you feel like you have to jump in and suddenly have it finished because everyone's watching you and it's scary. It's okay. You know, I think that's a big thing. And then I think, like Alejandra said, learn to ask questions. There is actually no dumb question except for the one not asked and the one that you've asked 5 times and you should have written down. You know, it's better to ask 5 times, but after you've asked twice, maybe write it down and try, you know, and work on that, but ask. It's a waste of time trying to figure something out for 2 hours when the person sitting next to you or that one person on a call could answer it in 5 minutes and then teach you how they learned that. It's okay to ask. It's fine. You know, it's no one can know everything. I most certainly do not. And then the third point, which you touched on as well, is self-belief and how to work on that. Honestly, if you're in this panel, you're there. There's been so many points in here to help with those ideas of imposter syndrome and paying attention to your own thoughts. But having that self-belief, but making sure you don't go out there pretending like you do know everything and edging in the arrogance. Because if you are an approachable, kind person, when you start off, everyone will help you. If you bust through a studio being like, this is the best and I know everything, that gets a little bit less approachable. So have an open attitude, but also do believe that you're there for a reason, and everyone knows that and they trust that and they all just want to help, you know?
Yeah. Especially in our environment. Yeah. especially in our environment, I think that it feels like you could just ask anybody anything, and everyone's just really helpful. So just guys, we're closing to the end of our panel. I know it went by really fast, and we've got a couple of questions that we want to ask as well. So we're going to get to those questions. Any final tips that you want to share that you wish someone told you at the beginning of your career, or that if you could do it all over again, something that you do differently? Any of that you want to sort of share as final comments before we go into the Q&A? Maybe Matthew, you want to start? Looks like you're ready to share.
Yeah, just one thing to add. I think one thing I've learned in my time, especially as I've moved into lead and supervision roles, is that when you have a difficult problem or a difficult decision to work through, take some time away from the computer to think it through, because the computer is a tool. It's a great, fantastic tool, has lots of buttons and possibilities. But whenever you make decisions while you're using a tool, the constraints and the strength of that tool influence your decision making. So I find it really useful if I'm just getting stuck on something, go around in circles, just step away, go for a walk, have a coffee, and just think it through properly away from the computer, and then come back and figure out how to solve it with the tool.
I'd like to add to that actually quickly. So something that I learned way later in life, and not learned, it was just a statement that I had a manager tell me every time I would stress out. They would just go, "You're not saving lives."
Yes.
This
Yes.
will help you every time you're stressed out and you're like, this is the end of the world. You just have to remember that you're not saving lives.
Yeah.
If you're a doctor, it would be probably, or if you're in that field, you'd be probably thinking that. But here, no, you need to step out. And like Matthew said, step away from your workspace, take that 15-minute walk, or go have a coffee, do something else completely, something else that you enjoy, rather than stressing over it. And things can wait. Honestly, things can always wait. When you feel more composed, you should come back, because you'll do it well, and you'll do it in half the time that you would probably when you're stressed. So I've realized that that's helped me so much. I'm still learning. I've not still aced it, but that's the thing that I constantly tell people and tell myself. I'm not saving lives. This can wait. Yeah.
I agree with Akila. That's something I like to remind myself all the time. And another tip that I have is that when something upsets you at work, or someone does something that you don't agree with and you get a little bit emotional about it, a cool technique to use is to write an email with no one in this. Don't put anyone's email address in there, but write all of your feelings down, put it how you really wish you could say it, and then just walk away. And then come back and delete it and rewrite it. And you'll find you'll get more of the logical facts across, because you've just thrown out your feelings and you've had that moment. Never put their name in the sending. Just don't do that until you've deleted it, rewrite it, and then you can kind of get to the point and be a bit more productive with what you actually need from that information and that email, rather than potentially saying something you shouldn't have because you were just upset, only to find out they never meant to offend you in the first place. It was a misunderstanding. It's yeah.
Right.
Yeah, adding to that is just a little quick thing. It's like, yeah, some big thing that can help you is always your teammates or people that you're confident to. Like I have some of them in my team, and every time we discuss something, if you're stressed, you can always talk to them. If you have a technical problem, you can always talk to them. It's always good to just calm down your head, as just Matthew and Akila and everyone said. It's just like, don't stress yourself and just ask someone else, and then say, hey, how do you fix this? How will you fix this? Or what are your techniques to do it? And I have found that in a lot of shows, and so many good people help me in super difficult shots, very technical, very art directed, and you get stressed because it gets back, it gets notes and everything. So you just ask someone else, and they're always giving good advice.
Yeah, lots of amazing tips. Just try, take a leap of faith, learn to ask questions. You don't have to know everything. Self-belief, disconnect, step away, go for a walk. That's a lot of what some of the personal strategies, especially for mental health and when to avoid any burnout. Write an email or journal. and connect with your trusted team members, right?
Mm.
Ask for support. So so I hope everyone's taking some notes on that. I know I'm learning a lot from our panelists. There's a really fun question that we want to ask all of you, and you don't have to all answer, but if you do feel like you would like to answer, any dream character or projects you haven't worked on professionally yet that you wish, maybe something that you'd want to work on? Okay, Alejandra, go for it.
Well, my dream character, because I'm a fur and hair passionate, I would love to have a big, sorry for the word, wolf or something really like flowy and furry and fluffy, and that does all the crazy stuff that they do in the animal world, and you're just like simulating it with no problem, and that will be great to work.
That sounds like fun. I would be excited to watch that.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share a dream project that you'd love to work on?
I think, and for me, it's a real possibility, but you never know how things line up. But for me, The Last of Us. Possible. Who knows? I just got to work on Uncharted, so that's like, you know, and yeah. So there's too many. It's just a lot of them. Anything from a video game. I'm not gonna lie. I love video games. That's yeah.
I was gonna say, like, totally off this, I would have loved to have my name on Frozen.
Oh yes.
That's a fun one, right? Now I got that song in my head and I won't be able to get it out. I'm going to be singing that song.
I know, let it go, right? Like, you got to let it go sometimes. So yeah.
You know, Gemma just reminded us here, Stevie, that we are working on The Last of Us at DNEG. So I don't know if you knew that. So
I do. That's the thing. That's
why you brought it up. Okay.
It's a real. I've only just found out about it, so it's a possibility, and
it is a very, very big.
Like I say, video game characters like Tomb Raider and stuff like that. That's just, I love that, you know. So if anyone wants to make a TV show out of like Horizon Zero Dawn, I am there. Like, that would be awesome. So yeah, video game characters and.
Yeah, I'm really excited about Matrix. Resurrection. So yeah. Any other final comments that you want to share? And then I'll do a closing, but I'm just checking to see if we have any questions that are ready to be asked here. Anything else that's coming up for our group? Any final words that you want to share? There's a really fun question here. Maybe we just finish this off right here, which is, what would you tell yourself at the beginning of your career? But it has to be like 30 seconds.
I will say, don't be afraid, and you can do it. And everything that you have in your mind, you can possibly do it. There's no limit.
There's no limit. Yay. Okay.
Yeah. And I definitely had a statement I thought of, is that find an exercise you like to do, anything, and do it. VFX is not a sprint race. It's a lifelong ultra marathon, and you need to look after yourself. So exercise is key. I can sit at this desk for 14 hours a day for 6 days in a row sometimes, and sometimes even more. Find a balance. Balance, yeah. Yeah. Exercise and balance. It's important.
Exercise and balance. How about you, Akila and Matthew?
I would have, honestly, if I had to tell myself something, I would have said, don't doubt, because I did have a small doubt, but it turned out all right. I did stick the plan. So I feel like I did all right.
Yeah, you did do all right. And Matthew, just to close it off for us.
Yeah, I think just have a variety of interests outside of work is a really helpful thing. When you're too into work, having something you can jump into, something physical is good as well, or something you can hold in your hands. That's all good.
Yeah, that's great. That's great thoughts. So as a final question for our participants while you're still on, and thank you again for staying for the whole session, what is your key takeaway from today's session? We'd love for you to share that, because then we're learning as well for next time as we're going through another deep dive series, but just in general for all of us, as we're all lifelong learners. So feel free to share that. And in closing, I just want to thank all of our panelists. Thank you so much, Alejandra, Stevie, Matthew, and Akila, for just being so honest and opening your heart and sharing all of your wonderful life lessons to thrive in VFX and animation. And to all of the participants, thank you as well for taking the time to be engaged in the chat. There were so many comments and we just love it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And we hope that you are able to join our next deep dive series. So please follow us on all our social media channels. You'll see any updates there. And let's just keep sharing our stories to create a more inclusive and belonging culture and community. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Bye, everyone.